10:49. My name is Rachel, and I can be found pretty much everywhere as Ralph for Pearls. Thank you so much for being here this morning to those who are in the live chat. The live chat is always open to those who are patrons of the show, and we stream the show every Sunday morning here at Casa del Welford. I hope everybody's really well. It is Sunday, May 3rd, so we are into a new month, and it's just so good to see everybody and to be here and to be present. And I hope everybody's doing really super well. The kids are downstairs playing a game. My sister-in-law, they're big board game people, as are we, and they gave us for Christmas a board game called Cauldron Quest. If anybody wants to Google that and throw it into the live chat, like a link to the game, it's very hard. But it's really good. And the kids have kind of gotten used to not winning, which is really cool. I think a lot of games are set up for we play a lot of cooperative games, and a lot of games are set up to be, for you to win, right? As a team or individually. And this game, the kids don't win. I think in the times that we've been playing it, I think we've won like maybe 3 times, and we've played it like 3 or 4 dozen times. So very, very interesting. So how are you all? Good morning. It's so good to see you all here. Welcome. It's good to see. I know, Sarah, you're only going to be here for a little bit, but it's so good to see you. I know Sunday mornings is a bit challenging for people because, of course, many have church. A lot of churches are live streaming right now. Our church is doing that. And ours actually doesn't do it until later. So I know Sunday mornings can be a little bit dicey for people, but because of Europe and being 8 hours ahead plus, and then down under, it actually is a really good time. I've had a lot of feedback that it's actually like a pretty good time. So thank you to those who carve out a little bit of time in their morning to spend with us here. Good to see you, Bridget, Kelly, Tessa, Joanna, Allison, San, Karma, Jennifer, Alicia, Glenda, Wendy, Kaylee, Ingrid. It's so good to see you all. So thank you so much. Welcome. So in today's show, you can see I've got just an absolute pile of things here. It is overcast outside, so I have the blinds all open. So hopefully we don't have a whole bunch of sun streaming in all of a sudden it blows everything out. But if that's the case, I'll hop up and I will fix it. I know sometimes it's worth it to do those things just so that everything goes smoothly, and we don't end up with a whole bunch of glare on the camera, because that can be really hard, just to sort of have going on the cameras and to be really super blown out like that. So I'm just going to post a photo of what I wanted to chat about really, really quickly, because it has already gone live, and I would like to share with you guys a big thing that is going on in the Patreon content right now. So our yarn substitution stuff has started. We will be working on our yarn substitution content for the next 4 months. This is something that sort of started out of a very organic sort of ask from the community for quite a long time, and I started putting it together back in the fall. And I am so pleased that May we are finally going to be launching it. So our yarn substitution content, it is all linked down below in the show notes. so please click on the links down below, but basically we are looking at we're going to spend 4 months on this content. This month in May, we are looking at yarn statistics, calculating your yarn statistics. We're looking at twist angle and grist and all things sort of calculating the numbers behind our hand spun yarn. And then we are actually looking at how we apply all of that into a sweater, which this month's sweater is the Felix cardigan. It is featured behind me here. And if you would like to knit your own Felix cardigan or your own Felix pullover, please hop into the mini group spin along in the Ravelry group, and that is linked down below as well. So along with the yarn substitution content, each month there's a vlog, and if you want to subscribe to a little bit higher of a tier, then you can have a downloadable transcript of the vlog with photos. Along with this, because yarn substitution is such a sort of a big subject for hand spinners, we're looking at spinning to substitute yarn in a knitted pattern, and we're also looking at yarn that we've already spun and how do we plug that into a knitting pattern. So along with that comes lots of questions and lots of opportunity for discussion. And so we have a brand new tier that just went live just a couple of days ago. It is called the Queries and Explorations tier. It is linked down below on the landing page of Patreon, and I will link it in the live chat now. There is a limited number of amount of space, and these will be done as a Zoom meeting. So you will receive the day before, you will receive a link to the Zoom meeting, and then you can just come in, and they'll be at 8:15 Pacific Daylight Time on 2 Saturdays this month, on the 16th and the 30th. So if you think that you can join and you would like to join and you would like to come and see what it's all about, please hop on over and just see if it's something that maybe you'd be interested in, and maybe you'd be wanting to participate with us and learn with us and grow with us. This community is all about just inspiring one another and trying to, better our making and better our yarns and use them in our knitting and weaving and crochet. So I hope that you guys will think about that. And it's so good to see everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. My mouth. Oh, thank you, Sarah. So it is, it's better than it was last weekend. I started looking up some remedies and stuff to see. If you're wondering about my mouth, just go back to the last episode. I talked about it at the beginning. I've sort of been Googling some remedies and stuff. There's quite a few blogs actually devoted to pine mouth syndrome, if you can believe it. I think it's because it's just so traumatic. Like for some people, it really would affect your quality of life. It's certainly been very challenging to deal with the masks and stuff at work. And so I've been sort of looking up some stuff. So one thing that actually has helped for like a short-term fix, if you will, which is why I don't have gum in my mouth this week, this show, is doing oil pulls. So it's where you rinse your mouth out with oil, a tablespoon of oil for a minute and a half, and spit it out. I mean, you could swallow it if you want to, but I've been spitting it out, and it sort of like coats your mouth, and it helps to change the pH of your mouth, and it helps foster good bacteria growth. And anyways, I've been learning all these things. So anyhow, it actually has been helping in the short term. I've done 2 so far. I did one last night and one this morning. And the other thing is scraping your tongue. So what actually happens, I've been reading about this, is that the particulate of the pine nuts that causes the penny taste actually gets embedded in your bitter taste buds, and those tend to be at the back of your tongue. And so one of the ways that you can help to alleviate the symptoms is by actually scraping your tongue and getting those cells to slough off a little bit faster. And so that's actually been helping a little bit. So it is still there, but it's manageable. And I haven't felt like I have to chew so much gum. I've also been able to enjoy my coffee without this really horrible aftertaste, which has been really nice. So little things, they say it can take up to 2 to 4 weeks to resolve, and even in extreme cases, several years. I'm not going to be one of those cases. I will scrape my tongue until it is raw, if that's what I need to do. So anyhow, thank you so much for asking, Sarah. I really appreciate it. In today's show, I wanted to chat about all the things that are here on the table. We've got a couple of things from our community for me to share. So without further ado, let's get into the show. And thank you for listening to me wax poetic about our yarn substitution content, I'm quite excited about it. So I will see you on the other side. Great question, Sarah. So she asked if it affects my breathing or my sense of getting enough oxygen. So it does when I'm wearing the masks at work. So wearing the masks at work has actually been really, really, really hard because I feel like I can't, it's not that I can't breathe. It's that I feel like the taste in my mouth is like overwhelming. And when we're wearing the N95s, we're not allowed to be chewing gum or have anything in our mouth. And a lot of us will put like a mint under our tongue and just suck on it like under here, and just hold it there if we know that we're going to be in the room for an extended period of time, or if you know that you're going to be putting on your N95 and then you're not going to be taking it off for several, usually it's several hours. So I have been doing that. And then when we're wearing the simple masks and our goggles, I just feel that acute sense of that there's this thing and it's kind of in my mouth and there's nothing I can do about it. I've kind of decided to just take a deep breath and accept it and try to just sort of, when I feel like you know how there's our lizard brain, and our lizard brain sort of has all these thoughts and opinions about all this stuff that's going on around us. So it's like, our lizard brain is responsible. This is our amygdala. A lot of people will say like, and I used to do this too, like, oh, I'm craving, chips. Well, you're not really craving chips. You just sort of have this passing thought that's driven by your amygdala that is sort of saying, has sort of this random thought. And if you sort of acknowledge it and be like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm kind of want some chips. Thanks for letting me know. And just don't react to it. The craving or the emotion or the feeling will just sort of pass. So that's sort of what I've been trying to do with my mouth. Is like, yeah, it's bugging me. It's annoying. Okay. And then sort of trying to go on with my day. And that's actually been really helping. And I feel like it's a good habit to foster anyways, is not to sort of react to everything that comes into my head anyways. So this recent study that I was a part of, that was very much a lot of the reframing and rethinking about how we think about our thoughts and how we react to our thoughts. And so I've been putting some of that into practice, and it's actually been really helping, especially with this acute mouth situation. Yeah, coffee. There's nothing like coffee. I sometimes I think, oh, I should give up coffee. Like, it's probably not the best, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm like, but why? I have cut back though. I was drinking an inordinate amount of coffee and I have cut back, and I do mostly drink decaf. So there is that. All right. Yeah. More observation than reaction. Exactly, Sarah. Good to see you, Kelly. I will be visiting your house later this week. Less intense, yeah. Yay for mindfulness. It's true, Amanda. That's exactly what it is. It's just a different type of mindfulness and mindfulness in practice. All right. Okay, so we have stuff going on in the Ravelry group. We've got the made with, or actually, let's do the giveaway first. So I don't think that she's here today, and she's usually here. Hi, Erica, Maggie, Marla, Pernell. So good to see you guys. Yeah, Florence isn't here. Bummer. So Florence won the April giveaway for the Frisian fleece. It's this fleece that me and James have been carding up together. It's absolutely amazing. It's next to the Skin Soft. It's a sort of downy like fiber. We've been carding this up into big bats, and it's very, very clean. It was obviously washed and scoured, and there was a little bit of VM in it, but as we've been carding it, it's just been what little bit was left has been falling out. And I've already started spinning this up because I am spinning it for the Shore cardigan by Carrie Bostic Hogue. And this was my knitted swatch that I did. And this is sort of a progression from 4 millimeter needles to 4.5 millimeter needles to 5 millimeter needles. So across the sort of from top to bottom, the swatch progressed. And the sweater will actually be knit on the 4 millimeter needles, which is this part of the swatch up here, this very top part. And I'm going to leave this undyed. It's going to be a natural color. And this was my my sort of sample card. I haven't put all of the pieces on there yet because the singles are actually physically on my Magicraft right now. And this will be a 2-ply. I'm just really, really, really enjoying this spin. And actually, now that my Cheviot spin is done, this will sort of be my next big spin. So this is going out to Florence, post number 13. The question was, what do you love most about the down and the down-like breeds? So this is what Florence says. This is Cook Goalie on everything, actually, Slack and Ravelry. She says, I love their no-nonsense behavior. There really is no such thing as a prima donna with the down breeds. Just by changing the twist angles, these fleeces will make anything from the airiest yarn to rope. They are robust but not scratchy. They wear incredibly well and are forgiving of laundry error. Very true. They are a dream to drum card and a joy to spin. I know favorite suggests just one thing, but it is impossible here. I could just go on and on and on. So congratulations, Florence. I'm glad that one of these bats that me and James has made is going to a down lover, and I will pop that in the mail for you when I can start shipping stuff again. Yeah, so I think what we'll do for May is, because I have such a huge amount of this fiber, and because I have more of these bats, and I'll be spinning them up for my sweater and also carding up more just to card them up and get them processed, I think we'll do another one of these for May. So the same question, what do you love about the down breeds? I will edit the April episode thread to be April/May, and you guys can just put your responses in there. So for May, let me do it right now because otherwise I will forget. It's been a little bit crazy over here. You know, it's funny, like sometimes, you know, I feel like our life is, you know, very quiet and there's not, you know, this huge amount of stuff going on. Like it feels very like doable, if you will. And then other weeks and other days, I'm like, oh my goodness, there's this huge list of things to do, and how are we going to get them all done, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, really? Nothing's really changed. Not really. So that will be in the April/May episode thread for this month. The link is down below in the live chat replay and in the live chat right now. If you guys want to go over there and tell me what you love about the down and the down-like breeds. And if you haven't spun them yet, or you haven't had a chance to work with them, maybe share with us one of the breeds, one of the down and the down-like breeds that you would like to try, or that you are sort of intrigued about. Like, you know, you're intrigued about the 3D crimp and how that spins up, or maybe you're intrigued by the bounce and the sproing, you know, and how that differs from the fine wools. Now you have to think of your own. Book club is going on in the hashtag books channel on the Slack channel. This is part of our Patreon community. Becca, who I don't think is in the Slack today, actually, or sorry, in the live chat today. It's their dinner time right now, so I'm hopefully she'll pop in later. Anyway, she's looking after this, and we just started yesterday Pride and Prejudice. So if you would like to read with us, please don't hesitate. We've been having Zoom book clubs every second Friday. So they're on the first and the third Friday in between the wool stream. So basically, for anybody who's got the wool stream, you've got something to look forward to every Friday. Our Made with Love Along is celebrating our friend Katrina of Crafty Jack's Boutique. And this is a community-wide call for anyone in the community to participate in our Crafty Jacks Along to honor some of the people in our community. Our cast-on date was April 1st. Our cast-off date and our finish date is July 31st. I'm working on the Anchors cardigan, and I'm also working on my Stonecrop pullover. So I'll show that to you later in the show. Kelly finished her spin for the Made with Love Along. This is the Lakeside colorway, and it is absolutely beautiful. This was from post number 162 in our Made with Love Along. My Lakeside sock spin in Katrina's Targhee is all done, split, and ready to cast on for socks. It looks amazing. So she spun to 3 bobbins. I don't know, Kelly, you're in the chat, so maybe you can tell us. I don't think she did a fractal. I think she did a traditional 3-ply with this, and it's just absolutely beautiful. This was one of our colorways that was developed for our fin study back in 2017, 2018. And it's funny because Lakeside, Arctic Berries, and Fractured Dawn are the 3 colorways that were developed for that study, and they keep coming up again and again and again and again. They just were really, really awesome colorways that Katrina developed, and they just have kind of gone down in history in this community. So that's really cool. So well done, Kelly. She's already halfway done with the socks. That's amazing. That's fantastic. Congratulations. So, oh, that's wonderful, Kelly, or Jennifer, that you're just starting the 51 yarns process. That's amazing as well. That's fantastic. She did do a fractal. I was sort of looking at it thinking, you can see that striping in there. And that makes me think that it's probably a fractal. So beautiful, beautiful. Well done. Very nice, very nice. All right, I wanted to share a Zero to Hero with you that actually is from Bridget. And she's in the chat today, so that's even better. This was Bridget's Zero to Hero. So Zero to Hero is going from the fiber to the yarn to the finished item, and it's going over the course of the whole year, 2020, and we'll probably keep it going into 2021. This was something that we had started way back when the podcast was still relatively new, and then we kind of dropped it for a year or two, and then people called for it to come back. So hashtag Zero to Hero, and there's a thread in the Ravelry group. You do not need to be a patron to be a part of this. Same with the Made with Love Along. You do not need to be a patron. This is just stuff that's going on in our greater community. The woolen spinning community has grown a lot. Thank you to everybody who's joined the Ravelry group. And there's a lot that goes on in the Ravelry group. So if you're not looking to be a part of Patreon, but you would like to be a part of the community, please hop on over to the Ravelry group and see what's going on, because there's probably something there for you. And our Zero to Hero is our make along that's just going to continue. So Bridget finished her jacket, which is amazing. So I included all of the photos that she posted because in her project page, because it's amazing to see the process from beginning to end of all of the spinning and all of the work that she did. So really, really well done. So this is what she says. I'm going to read what she wrote. She finished the jacket. The Zero to Hero prompt gave me the inspiration to try something I never thought I could do. I just am over the moon that that's the case. In the end, she used 2 pounds of a Jacob fleece. She chain plied it and created a bulky weight yarn. It is woven plain weave, and she used a Berta sewing machine to sew the jacket. She learned quite a few things from this project, beginning with an answer to her simplest of questions, which is how much raw wool would it take to create a hand-woven garment? In addition, she will be more careful in picking out a sewing pattern in the future. This pattern called for a lining and interfacing, which she had no intention of including in the garment. That meant that she had to improvise a little bit at the end, but she is so happy with the results. And Bridget, I'm assuming this is photographed on your husband. I'm not sure. Please let us know, Bridget. It just looks amazing. It looks awesome. So those are all of the yarns there that she created. And then I think there's a photo of some of the skeins, and there's a photo of it on the loom. It's just amazing. That yarn in the jacket, amazing, says Jennifer. That's fantastic. Stunning, says Amanda and Maggie. That jacket, jaw on floor, says Ingrid. Jacket is stunning, says Wendy. It's just, I love that we have the opportunity to hold up somebody's work like this. Like, this is what it's all about. And he looks just absolutely so handsome and dapper in his jacket. So really, really well done. Turns out to be 2.5 pounds. Unbelievable. So we'll just take a moment to let everybody comment, because the live chat and the live stream for me is actually delayed by a couple of minutes. So that's why sometimes I don't catch comments anymore, just the way that YouTube has changed things. There's quite a big delay. Marla says, wow, I love the pop of blue in the yarn. Yeah, the lakeside, it's got that pop of color. Really, really, really fantastic. Yeah, it was her husband. I was pretty sure. You never know, right? Like sometimes there's photos of like people's like their dad and it's their husband or it's their friend or their partner or their uncle. So I never like to assume. And sometimes it's somebody's partner, but it's not necessarily their husband. So, or, vice versa. So just don't want to completely put my foot in my mouth. Awesome. Everybody's just absolutely so positive. Oh, it was for your Shetland trip, and that ended up being canceled, I think, if my memory serves right, Bridget. Hopefully you guys will be able to reschedule that. Stunning, well done, says Allison. And that's it coming off the loom, which is really, really cool. All right. Thanks to Zero to Hero. That's fantastic. See, this is what it's all about. And we'll keep Zero to Hero going next year because it's been so much fun to feature these projects and to talk about them on the podcast. Because I think it's not only that you've done something, like that's not the only reason for doing Zero to Hero. Like it keeps you going and it keeps you moving forward, and it gets you doing these larger projects. But it's also to show others in the community who maybe haven't done something to help to give them the confidence to do it themselves and to build these big projects themselves. It's one thing to sort of talk about wanting to do these big sweater spins or do these big woven projects or take on your first sock spin, but it's another thing to really commit and to do it and to have a community of people behind you cheerleading and encouraging you to actually get through it. Because in the middle of the spinning, when you're spinning like say 2.5 pounds of fiber, or you're in the midst of spinning a 3-ply super fine yarn for socks, or you're spinning very intentionally because you're working with a fiber that's new to you, or maybe a luxury fiber that you're doing something different, like you're spinning from the fold and it's a little bit more challenging, or there's any number of reasons. But the thing is, when you've got a community of people behind you that can lift you up and encourage you and help you along, but also that you're accountable to, that you've got this commitment that you've been posting in the Slack channel and also on the Ravelry group, it just helps to keep you going and keep that momentum going. It's one of the reasons why I've been able to do some of my really big spins, is because I'm talking about them here on the podcast, and it very much keeps me accountable. So something to think about. All right, let's talk about some fiber that I found. I'm going to switch the cameras around. I found some fiber. I've been going through my stash and kind of trying to find some stuff that is not that I've forgotten about, but that's been kind of a little bit buried. And I already talked about my Frisian. So my shore cardigan is coming along. I've got... I'm spinning this fiber on my Magicraft, and I actually have the first bobbin finished, and I'm going to spin the second bobbin hopefully this week and get that plied, and I'll see what my yardage is, because my bobbins on my Magicraft, they're so big. For those who sort of know the Magicraft bobbins and the wheels, they're quite good sized bobbins. And so I'm going to ply that up and see what my initial yardage is, because I think for the shore cardigan, for those who don't know what that cardigan looks like, I'll just post a photo. I think the yardage that I need for it is, don't remember what it is exactly. I won't spend too much time looking. Yeah, I don't have the, I don't have it right here, but I do have it over here on Ravelry. So the shore cardigan is by Carrie Bostic Hogue. And for those who aren't sure what this one is, Oh, Bridget, I'm sorry to hear about Shetland. Yeah, that it was canceled. The shore cardigan, I've put it in the live chat, so it'll be there in the replay if you're watching this later. It calls for a worsted weight yarn, 9 wraps per inch, roughly. It's done on 4.5 and 4mm needles. So the ribbing is done on the 4mm needles, US size 6, and then the body of the cardigan is done on US size 4s. US size 4.5. So I'm actually going to adjust my stitch counts a little bit because my yarn is more like a DK, and the pattern calls for 1,000 yards of yarn. So for the size that I'm going to make, it'll be somewhere between 1,000 and 1,100 yards of yarn of worsted weight. So I think what I am going to sort of do, and because we've talked about this a lot in the community, but you know, many of us find that we end up not using the amount of yardage called for in the pattern. So I think what I'm going to do is make sure that I at least have 1,000 yards spun, and I have about somewhere between 500 and 600 yards on my bobbin right now. So I'll spin that again, ply that up, and then get 2 more bobbins spun, and then I'll see how much my yardage is, and then I'll go from there, because I don't really want to have just an inordinate amount of singles left over at the end and just have all of this like 2-ply 2,000 yards of yarn to deal with, because A, I would rather give some of the bats to you guys, and B, I might want to do a different yarn in a different sweater. So it would be nice to be able to, you know, spin this up and have this yarn and knit this cardigan, and then depending on how much of the fleece I have left over and how many bats I have, maybe I do a 3-ply that's a worsted weight and find another sweater, and then I could have the 2 sweaters and sort of compare and contrast between the two, sort of what the similarities are, what the differences are, what spinning them in a different way sort of ended up creating and causing. So that is that project. So I'll put that aside, and we'll talk about other stuff. So I was going through my stash like I was going to talk about, and I found this. I don't know who dyed this. I got it years ago. I think I got it back in like 2014. It's been in my stash for a long time. It's Falkland. And the reason why I know it's Falkland is because that's the only thing I remember about it. So it's Falkland. And it's been braided up like this for like since I got it. And because I had just started this spin, my 3 Waters Farm combo spin with this other unknown stuff from my stash, the colors are all very, very much coordinating. And I hadn't gotten any progress on my e-spinner in this past week because I have been working to finish up my Cheviot spin. So I kind of thought, well, since I haven't made any progress and I've only spun through the first 3 or 4 nests that I had created for the first bobbin, maybe what I should do is just put the brakes on, finish the Cheviot spin, because I need to get that yarn dyed. That's this here. We'll talk about that after. And I'll take some of these nests that were for the second bobbin that I hadn't divided up yet. And take all of these nests that I had made from the first half of the first 2 braids, divide this one up, get this all split. So I'll split this in half, and mix and do the same thing with this and mix these all up. And then I'll do the same with the other half, spin to do bobbins, Bob's your uncle. And I'll have a combo spin of 3 braids instead of just 2, which will give me way more yardage and way more options in terms of what I maybe would do with the yarn afterwards. Because remember I did that Falkland spin back, I think I worked on it through February, and it was that greenish yarn. I'll put up a picture of it only because it's my probably one of my most favorite yarns that I've ever spun. It was this one here. I just have to make the photo a little bit smaller. So this yarn here, I had finished, and this was a Falkland from my friend Lynn of West Coast Color. And I spun this as a 2-ply. It came out sort of a light worsted, heavy fingering. And I had sort of thought about using it in a cardigan pattern by Anka's Trick. I think it's called the Little Love. And I had sort of thought that I would use it in that. But now I'm kind of wondering if I should use this yarn, the Falkland, the West Coast Color, as the background for a shifty pullover, because Maggie, who's in the chat today, has been posting her progress on Instagram, and I am so inspired by her colors that she chose and her hand spun yarn that she chose, and it's just such a fantastic knit, and I really want to make that cardigan, that sweater. And this yarn as a background color would work beautifully with a few braids that I have in my stash from Lynn that are also Falkland. I'm all about the Falkland right now. I don't know why. Oh, great question, Kaylee. I'll answer it in a second. So, so I'm kind of thinking that with this, I'll just work on this in the background on my e-spinner. I'll do some video to show you guys. We'll put it on the podcast, and I'll kind of like make the same yarn that I made with that green yarn, but in this color. And then I'll have like the greens for the shifty, and then I'll have this for the Little Love, which I just linked in the live chat replay, so you guys can click on that pattern. So I kind of got all this stuff in the background, kind of simmering, if you will, and I'm just gonna work on it as I can. I'll take some video of me working on my e-spinner, and I'll share some reflections for this project, because it's very different from the yarns that I spun, the Targhee bamboo silk yarns that I was spinning for the Wheeler, for the journal that Ashford publishes every year. Those yarns were very smooth. I wanted them to be really super high twist. They were, spun very, very quickly. They were traditional 3-plies, whereas this is going to be a little bit slower, a little bit more meditative, slower speed on the e-spinner, a little bit gentler. I want more loft and more bounce and more air in the yarns. And then I'll ply them a little bit more tightly to sort of compensate for those more gently spun singles. And this will just kind of be a longer term project. And I think what I'll do now that I have my battery pack, I'm all about the battery pack, I'll work on this outside in the nice weather, because we're definitely starting to finally see some nicer weather. And although it is raining today and it rained yesterday, but we need the rain, so I'm not complaining. I sort of thought, like, this is something I can take with me outside. I can put it on one of our little outdoor coffee tables that we pulled out of our trailer, since we're not really going to be camping this year unless things start to open up a little bit, which I hope it does, based on our numbers and whatnot. So what I'm going to do is just sit out there, and I'm just going to spin, and just very meditative. It's only 12 ounces of fiber. I just the fact that I get to sit out there and do that, who cares if I only spin 1 or 2 little nests at a time? So that's kind of how I've been framing this, is like, if I get to spin, I was actually going to talk about that with the shore. So the this kind of segues into your question, Kaylee. The bats for the shore cardigan, what I've been doing is splitting them into 4, and they're not really super huge. Like, James's attention span, he's only 7, isn't to make these massive bats. Like, he wants to card it all up, he wants to put it through the carder, and then he wants to take it off so he can do it all over again. So the bats aren't huge. So what I've been doing is I've been splitting them into 4, and all I've been doing is spinning 1 at a time. So I've been taking, so this is a quarter of the bat, and I've been taking it and dividing this quarter of the bat in half. No, this is a half, sorry. So I've been taking the bat, dividing it into 4. So this is a quarter. Oh, and I have to talk about my weaving today, because I have a new idea for my weaving, because I'm not getting anything done on my floor looms. And bless their hearts, James and Nora came to me the other day, and they're like, Mama, you never use your looms anymore. You're never looming anymore. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, I can't weave right now. Like, you guys are home. You're being homeschooled. Daddy's at home. I've got some deadlines that I'm working on, like the shore cardigan, or sorry, the Stonecrop. I've got a deadline for that. I've been working on this Cheviot spin, and we're going to wax poetic all about that in a minute. I said, you're right, I can't weave. Anyways, Mike was standing right there and he was listening to this conversation, and he's like, well, how can we like change that? How can we fix that? What? What do you mean fix it? What do you mean you actually are like wanting to help me open up more making time? And he's like, well, what are you like, come on, like what can we do? And I said, how about we carve out a little bit of time that every day I just get one tea towel woven. It takes me about half an hour. That's it. And he's like, perfect. Let's do that. We'll just make sure that happens. Oh, okay. But I think it's because they're sitting there and they see it every day and I see it every day. But for me, it's kind of more of like, well, I didn't get to it today, but I got to all this other stuff. I got to do all this other stuff. But they see it sitting there and they see it not being advanced. They see it not that the warp isn't moving forward. And they see me dusting it so that it doesn't get dusted. And I think it makes an impression. It's like, well, wait a second, Mama's not doing what she really loves to do. So why not? And that's been really cool. So what I've been doing with this is I've been taking the quarter and I divide it in half. And I've been doing this as many days as possible. I don't do it every day, but it's been pretty good. I have a look at when I divide it. I have a look to see if there's any second cuts, because there often is, because it's carded and I didn't comb it. And then I gently attenuate it, just very, very gentle. It doesn't need a lot. And then I wrap that up into a little nest, not too tight because I don't want to compress all of the air out of it, because these are relatively fresh because James and I just made them. So I'm going to divide this one more time because it's a little bit too big. And then I'm going to go to the other end where we took it off the carder. And I'll gently attenuate it as well. Wrap it up from the end that you finished attenuating, so that where you started attenuating is where you start spinning. All the way down. I hope you guys don't mind taking time to talk about this today. They are so supportive, Karma. But you know what it is? It's partially because they want to see me doing this full time. And everybody as our family unit, the four of us, are on board with working toward me doing the podcast full time and doing Patreon full time and doing all of this full time. And so I think they are learning as the kids get older, they're realizing and learning that mommy being home more and doing this stuff at home and being here for the community and building the community with you guys means that I need time to do the stuff. I need time to do the making, to do the administration, and to run the community. And so how do we do that? So it's been a big shift. It's been really cool. I feel very loved. I feel very blessed. And I don't know what else to say. So these 3 little nests, what I've been doing is making sure that I can spin this every day. That's it. And so it just kind of keeps the momentum going. It just keeps me like, I've got a little bit more done on the short cardigan. The bobbin's almost full. And, a little bit more done every day. And then tomorrow I'll do the other quarter of this bat. And then the next day I'll start on my next bat. And maybe by then the bobbin will be full. So that's kind of what I've been doing. So Kaylee, to answer your question, oh, good, Erica. I'm so glad. Good timing for Erica. She's finishing her fin study from a bat she created from the Arctic Berries colorway. Fantastic. That would be an amazing yarn blended up. That's a great idea, Erica. I can't wait to see that yarn. So, Kaylee had a really great question. Let's talk about the Cheviot spin in relation to Kaylee's question. So she wanted to know, your productivity is very impressive. How do you stay so motivated on so many different projects? Sorry for going off topic. That's totally not off topic. Don't apologize, Kaylee. That is what the live streams are for. So fantastic question. Thank you for asking. I am very productive. I'm going to put that in quotes. Because I am very efficient. And I have a few theories about this because my mom often will comment to me on how efficient I am with stuff and getting things done. I have kind of learned from a very early time in my nursing career, and I think those of you out there who are nurses can probably really appreciate what I'm about to say. Nursing, when you go through nursing school, so I went into nursing school when I was only 18, and I graduated with my degree, my Bachelor of Science in nursing when I was 21. And I started working at 21 because of where my birthday falls and how the university calendar year works. I was nursing for quite a few months full time as an RN when I hadn't even turned 22 yet, so I was very young. In many ways, I was very immature. I went through nursing school sort of in a bit of a blur, and because I was working full time as a lifeguard, and I was teaching swimming, and I was in school full time, but I didn't find nursing school particularly difficult. I just found it very it was just the intensity of the clinicals and the third and fourth year. I knew I really wanted to do my graduate degree at some point, so I was very focused on really making sure that my stuff was well done and that I was I really like policy and procedure. I like the process of the lit reviews and putting together all the research for that. And I've always really enjoyed that. So third and fourth year for me, all the theory and the sort of getting people ready to go on for more education, if that's what they decide to do, I really enjoyed that, but it was very intense. But in that time, you're very much being groomed. And I've had people describe to me because a lot of nursing, a lot of the guys that we had for whatever reason in our cohort, they ended up actually going on and going into the military. So they did their nursing and then they went into the military. And for a lot of them, it was because they wanted to, they wanted further education, but they didn't want to pay for it. And it's very regimented, how you make the beds, how you do certain things. And it's to keep you safe, and it's to keep your patients safe, and to also just get a lot done in a relatively short period of time. And so that was really fostered in me early on. And then going into Emerge and working Emerge for 10 years, it just fostered that even more. How can you juggle 7 or 8 things all at once, keep them in your head so that you don't forget, and get them done? And because I worked most of that time at triage, which means that I was the nurse that was at the front where people first come into Emerge and they tell you what's going on, and they tell the nurse, I've got chest pain, and okay, well, when did it start, and what does it look like, and how are you feeling now, and did you take anything before you came in, and what's your health history? That's the triage nurse, and she or he decides where you go in emergency and what level you are triaged at. Are you a level 1 and you need a physician and a nurse right away, or can you wait? That level of organization was just absolutely ingrained in me from the age of 21. So I think the reason that I can get a lot done in a very short period of time is that. Now, there's a caveat to that. The problem with that is that sometimes I don't slow down to smell the roses, and sometimes I don't slow down to really appreciate what's in front of me and what it is that I'm working on. So like the Cheviot spin, for example, I spun over 1,000 yards of yarn in about a week, which is pretty impressive, right? It's a lot of yarn. It's 3 singles. It's a 3-ply. It's worsted spun, so it's short backward. So you're really spinning the whole time. It's not long draw where you just whoop, 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 because, woolen spun yarns do tend to get spun a lot faster. So it's 1,000 yards, just over 1,000 yards of traditional 3-ply yarn, worsted spun and plied. That's a lot. Did I really appreciate the process and slow down and not necessarily slow down, but really appreciate the process? Was I really in the moment? Was I really just enjoying the feel of the fiber and enjoying the feel of it in my hands and the plying process and the opportunity to do this making, that I get to do this making, that I get to spend this time working with this fiber from these sheep that are local to me, that have been processed at a local mill? This gift that I have been able to enjoy and to participate in, that's the part that I think becomes the issue. So it's one thing to be really motivated to make the thing, but it's another thing to really appreciate the process and to slow down. Now, that doesn't mean that my efficiency and my ability to just do things really quickly is sort of negated by the other. But what I've been working on this past year is putting those two things together. Hence projects like this, hence projects like this, where it's like, can I make this yarn really super quickly and get this sweater done for our yarn substitution content? Because I had to pivot a little bit with that because of the yarn that I had also spun for that project, which we'll talk about in a minute. And that's, I think, the problem, right? And I think that that's the thing is like we get into these routines with our making, and it's all about the making, the getting it done, the making, the frenzy, I call it like the frantic pace and the energy and the electricity, and it's like we're like this, right? Like just vibrating. Deep breath, enjoy the process. And so I think for me, it's trying to put those two things together. And yes, I can get an incredible amount of things done in a short amount of time. Like, I can batch cook like the best of them. And my friend Nikki she comes over all the time to get recipes and to see what I do and to, learn from me, because she's not a cook and she's learning, and she's trying to put together all these, recipes and whatnot. And she's like, you're such an amazing, like, you just get it all done. And it's like, well, yeah, but I've been doing this for a long time, and I've had a lot of practice. I know what recipes work for our family, and I just get it done. Housekeeping is another story. I am not a great housekeeper. And so part of it is, what do you want to spend your time doing, and what do you have to sort of dig a little bit deeper and sort of find other ways of motivating yourself to get that stuff done. Does that make sense? Does that help at all? Yeah, it's true, Jennifer. So it's the ability to know the difference, and nursing is all about the management of those things. Absolutely. And I think that's part of what gets really fostered in us as nurses. And, the longer you work as a nurse, there's sort of this way of seeing the world and this way of sort of interacting with the world that is very much like a nurse's sort of lens. And it serves us really super well. When the SHIT hit the fan last night for my patient at 6:30 in the evening, and I had, kind of cruised with him all day, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, go time, let's go. We got to get this done. And, we had him sorted out and resuscitated within about 45 minutes. But, it's knowing that difference of when to put the brakes on and when to put the gas on. And when do we need to, rein it in, and when do we need to sort of, appreciate the moment and appreciate the time in our gardens, appreciate the time in our kitchens. One of the things that I've been doing when I've been folding the laundry is, I've been listening to, instead of listening to a podcast at 1.5 speed, instead of putting on Netflix, instead of putting on YouTube to see what I need to catch up with, you know what I've been doing? I've been putting on, because we have a Spotify subscription that we use. I've been putting on Spotify, and I've been putting on meditative music. And I've been just listening to like a couple of the streams that are called, there's one that I love called Chill Tracks. And there's another one that I love called Peace and Harmony, or Peace and something. Anyways, it's one of the tracks on Spotify, like one of the playlists. They're amazing, and just kind of just folding the laundry, doing the thing, being in the moment, gets it done. There's such a push to be super efficient, but what are we losing in that process sometimes? Absolutely, Kelly. And I think the one thing you have to remember too is I'm podcasting, and so I'm doing this sort of as like I wouldn't call me an amateur podcaster anymore. I'm not sure I would call myself a professional podcaster, but I am being paid for what I do, and I've got the weekly show, and I'm here with you guys. So there is part of this is my job, and so we do have to keep that in mind as well. I think it's important to remember that this is partially a job for me, and it's the best job ever. So I've been working on this Cheviot spin. So let me tell you about my Gotland Romney. I scoured it on Friday. I put it on the pot while the kids were doing their schoolwork. I put some Orvis paste in the pot, and I scoured it just low simmer for an hour. And I did do a final yardage count before, because it had already been washed. So I did a yardage count while I reskeined it to, and I'll put it under the big camera for you. But I could tell when I felt it and when I was rescaling it, it wasn't really quite clean, and it still felt like it had a lot of lanolin in it and just some stickiness to it. So I rescanned it. So in total, this is 500 yards of yarn, I think I've calculated, give or take. Let me find it because I did write it down. It's not here. It's about 575 yards of yarn, and so I've got two bigger skeins here, and I'm gonna do the Odyssey shawl by Joji Locatelli. And the cool thing about this shawl, I will link it in the live chat replay. Oh, Ingrid, bless you. Don't let the podcast burn you out. We need you. Thank you. That's so kind. You know what I do when I feel sort of burned out and my making goes a little bit lower and I don't have as much stuff to talk about for the podcast? We talk about more about what you guys are doing. That's that shift in that flow. So thank you for your kindness. That's lovely. When I don't have as much to talk to you about, we up the amount of community stuff that we talk about, and then vice versa. So that's how I've been working that. Oh, that's too bad, Maggie. Spinning for her shifty has left her thumb sore for a few days and she really needed a break. Yeah, that happens, hey? Feel like my thumb muscles atrophy, yeah. So what I did was I reskeined this. The Odyssey shawl is this really cool 3-color shawl. Her sample goes from this dark olive green to sort of a minty lime green to a gray. And in the pattern notes, she makes some comments about being able to modify to different yarn weights, different yardage amounts. It's a crescent shawl. So really all you need to know is that repeat, that pattern repeat. And then from there you can figure out how many stitches you want to build to and then build it from there. So I have one slightly smaller skein here, and what I thought I would do is actually use that for the first color of the shawl, and then as it grows I'll use these two, and I'm going to naturally dye these, and I'm going to do some sort of a gradient. I'm thinking maybe cochineal or marigold, where it'll go from dark to medium to light, and I think it'll probably start with the lighter at the top and move down to the darker. I'm not totally sure what that's going to look like. So this has ended up being about 600 yards. The reason why I didn't finish the Gentle Morning with this, which is that pattern by Trin Annalie, which is just a beautiful cardigan. It's what I'm going to be doing with my Cheviot. It's a raglan. It's got a folded over collar, long sleeves. I'm going to lengthen the torso a little bit. It's just a fantastic pattern. Because it's knit on 4mm needles, and which US size 6, and that is what I got gauge on with this yarn. It was just killing my hand. So I pulled it out, reskeined the yarn, and I love this yarn so much. And it is next to the Skin Soft. It's the Gotland Romney, and it's just beautiful. This is a traditional 3-ply. And the Odyssey has these big open yarn overs. I think you do like multiple wraps on the needle to create these big yarn overs. So I thought that I would, this would be the perfect yarn to do that. The other shawl that I had thought about maybe making, but I've already made it before, so I kind of thought, well, maybe the Odyssey would be a lovely pattern to make instead of, because I had already made the other one, is Stephen West's pattern, the Eastern shawl. This is my project. I did it in Barocco Ultra Alpaca from some stashed yarn, and it's got these massive yarn overs. And so because this is a traditional 3-ply, and the 3-plies don't tend to open up in the yarn overs like the 2-plies do, because 2-ply yarns sort of are like fighting against each other. So they really open up in those yarn overs, whereas traditional 3-plies tend to kind of close in on themselves, and they make a slightly denser fabric. And so this yarn, these 3-ply yarns, this is the Cheviot and this is the Gotland Romney. They make these amazing sweater yarns and toques and cowls and mittens and socks and, you know, these sort of stockinette and textured stitches. That's a broken rib that's part of the Gentle Morning pattern, because I knit this in pattern to sort of get a sense of what this would look like. It's not blocked yet. I did this yesterday at work. and before everything hit the fan at 6:30. So this is going to be dyed at some point. It is going to kind of go on the back burner just because I want to work on this in the meantime, but I've got it all ready to go for the dye pots. So my Cheviot spin. So this ended up being very, very, very fast. I don't know what my total weight is of fiber, but this is my spinning control card. No, it's not. That's my Gotland Romney. Where is my Cheviot? Here it is. So I spun the singles. If anybody has any questions about the Gotland Romney, please don't hesitate to ask. Does that rule apply regardless of the yarn? When my spinning motivation is up, I spin as many singles as I can. Then when my motivation is down, I have a lot of storage bobbins. That's awesome, Erica. Sorry, Jennifer, what does that apply regardless of the yarn? What rule apply regardless of the yarn? The 2-ply and the 3-ply? Is that what you're wondering about? That the 2-ply will always sort of push out on itself and create really beautiful yarn overs, and the 3-ply yarns will always sort of turn in on themselves and create really beautiful patterned stitches, textured stitches, cables, texturing like this. If that's what you're asking, then yes, that's always the case with wool. And like you'll notice a lot of the fibers like silk, bamboo, like the specialty fibers, you'll notice that they're often spun as 2-plies because they are often used in weaving, and they're often used in lace knitting. Yeah. 2-ply versus 3-ply, that's always the case. When you look at 2-ply yarns, like if you look at them really closely, let me show you an example. Let me just move things around because this is all to do with my Cheviot spin. And I do want to show you my Stonecrop today really quickly. The show is already sort of over time, but we've got lots to talk about. So we'll go for another 10 or 15 minutes at least. So this is the other, so these are all of the skeins of yarn of the Cheviot. So 2 of them are washed and 2 of them are not washed. So these 3 on this side are washed, and then these 2 over here are not washed. And I don't have total yardage counts yet, but in total I have about just over 1,000 yards of yarn because each of these is 220 yards because I try to reel off my skeins more and more when I reskein yarn because this was washed and then I reskeined it. I've been trying to make my skeins about the same size so that when they go to be dyed, they're all the same size. So these are both 220 yards. This was a little bit smaller because it was the leftovers, is 180 yards. And then these 2 will be reskeined, but one of these is quite a bit bigger, this one. And it's, sorry, the camera's blowing out a little bit from all this white. This one is 240 yards, just fresh off the wheel. And this one's about 210 yards, just fresh off the wheel. So in total, I have about 1,000 yards. And then these 2 yarns here, so one of these is a 3-ply and one of these is a 2-ply. So these are the leftovers. So you can see this one over here is the 2-ply and the other one is the 3-ply. Let me just move the mic away a little bit because I'm right at the mic. So I'm kind of yelling into it. So if you just take a moment to really, let me switch the cameras. To really look at those 2 yarns. Hopefully that's helpful. So look at how round the 3-ply is. The 3-ply is on this side. It's very, very, these aren't washed. It's very, very round. It's you can see that twist angle there is a little bit, it's, they're both 45 degrees, but it's just that roundness, right? Whereas the 2-ply, if you looked at it flat and it wasn't in skein form, 2-plies always look a little bit oval. And they always look like the 2 singles are sort of, instead of like with a 3-ply where they really wrap around each other, it's almost like there's an invisible core that they're wrapping around like a barber pole. The 2-plies almost sort of are laying next to each other kind of, even though the twist angle is quite good. It's about 45 degrees. They're very, very different yarns. Singles spun the same way, but plied 2 versus 3 ply, and you've ended up with 2 very different yarns. Would the 2 ply make a really nice sweater yarn? Probably. Cheviot is just such a great fiber for all the things. It would make an amazing lace shawl. Amazing lace shawl. That yarn right there would just be absolutely incredible for a lace shawl. The camera's blowing out a little bit because of all the white. I probably shouldn't have worn white today. I think it's just too much for the camera and the light, and actually it's getting brighter outside, so there's that as well. So this is my knit sample. I did this, I haven't washed it yet. That's actually on my list of things to do today. So this is my knit sample on 4mm needles, and washing and blocking and stuff, I basically have gauge. So I'll be going ahead and casting on the sweater. I want to dye this yarn. I'm torn about what color to do it. I'm thinking I might ask Katrina if there's any chance she could do a rush dye job for me. But she's got a lot on her plate right now. So I'm not sure about that. But I'll get these other skeins washed up, and then I'll get final yardage counts and get that all finished. But this was just an absolute pleasure to spin. I spun it short backward. I did the same thing that I did with this, where I made these little nests from the 1.5 pounds of fiber that I had. And I just kept stripping and stripping and stripping, spun on my Lendrum. This is my control card. So you can see at the top there, those are my singles. I spun them to about 22 to 24 wraps per inch, 17 to 1. And then the ply back test, that was the 2 ply back test there. And there we go. See if the camera can. And then the bottom there is plied, twist angled 45 degrees, 3 ply, pre-washing. So what I actually need to do now is take the washed sample and put this on here, and then you can really see how much this yarn transformed when it was washed. So the reason why I spun the plied yarn, so I was breaking yarn there. The reason why I spun the plied yarn, like I wanted to finish with a wraps per inch of 11 to 12, but I spun the yarn to a wraps per inch of 12 to 14. And the reason why I did that is because I knew that in the washing process, because of Cheviot and what it's like and the poof factor, and it's a down, I knew it would really poof up quite a bit. And so if you look at those 2 samples, look at how much more, I'll do it on the other camera. Look at the difference between those 2 yarns at the bottom. Like this is the unwashed here, and this is the washed down here. Look at how much poofier the yarn at the bottom is. Even if it's only slight, in knitting terms, that's significant. So it went from being a little bit crunchy to being completely like next to the skin soft, not crunchy at all. And this, I wouldn't even say this is crunchy. I think to a really sensitive person that might feel crunchy. So this is the unwashed and this is the washed. You can see the difference. There is a difference. And I plied this at 45 degrees. So when it came off the wheel, it twists 2 times. So it doesn't come off the wheel perfectly balanced. It twists twice. You guys know how I feel about balanced yarn, quote unquote. And then after washing, oh, Jennifer, that's awesome. I've learned something new that explains so much. Now something else I've learned will fall out. That's funny. Okay, and then this was it post-washing. So this is the yarn post-washing. Just hangs. Just beautiful. And the twist angle is still See if I can get this to focus. If it sees my ring, that seems to help the camera to grab onto something to focus on. So it's still blowing out a little bit, but it's just the brightness now outside. It's quite a bit brighter, but you can see down by my finger down there, you can see that twist angle is 45 degrees. It's just beautiful. And it knit up like an absolute dream. So this is going to be one of those projects that like goes down in history, I think, for me, like, being one of my favorites. The yarn anyways. Who cares about the sweater? Kelly, I thought about indigo. If you lived down the street from me, I would come over and I would ask you if you could do it for me, or we could do it together and we could do an indigo dye. Yeah, under dye it with indigo, marigold, and then indigo. That would be a lovely teal. I just don't have any indigo. And I don't really want to make a bat. So, yeah. Yeah, pretty cool. Hey, Bridget? Yeah, that's why it's important to document your yarns. Like, that's why I make all of these, Like, I know it seems really labor intensive, but like, that's why I make all of this stuff. And that's why I keep them close by so that as I'm making and as I'm spinning, they just grow and grow and grow and grow. And actually, I found a binder because I've been cleaning out our closet, and I found a binder, one of those half binders that 8.5 by 4.5, the ones that are like the half size. And what I'm going to actually start doing is hole punching these and putting them in there, because this my big binder with my index cards works really well for certain spins, but it doesn't work quite so well for these big, like, epic spins. And so I've been trying to figure out sort of a way to keep these organized and keep them from getting all like you can see how they get kind of a bit beaten up after a while. And so I'm going to pull that out today and see if that maybe would work, because I thought that was a really great way. And if it works, I'll show you guys next week on the show. So that's that spin. So let's talk about my Stonecrop, and then we're going to say goodbye, because I can't keep you here all day, even though I'd love to. Okay, so my Stonecrop I have divided for the sleeves, and my row gauge is very, very different from my from the pattern. So I kept trying it on my dress form, and isn't that incredible? Can I just like be a little bit egotistical for a minute and say, like, I knocked this one out of the park? Am I allowed to say that? Once, I'm usually not really super like toot toot puff puff, but I feel like with this, I feel like I nailed it. The Cheviot spin was another one. I nailed it, So full sort of disclosure about some stuff going on in our family. In the last 6 weeks, we've had about 5 deaths in our family, and it's all people, other than one, it's all people that we were expecting. Very elderly. They've had amazing lives, and we knew that it was sort of all of this stuff was coming. But there's been that, and then the COVID, and then the my work situation, and the kids being homeschooled, and Mike working from home, and there's, you know what I mean? Like, there's just been a lot going on, and then I had the Cheviot spin just went off without a hitch, and it's just been so awesome. And now this, and I just feel like I just feel like that feeling of like just gratitude and being filled up, that these are like these gifts that have been kind of presented to me in the wake of all of this sort of perceived chaos. And yeah, I'm just really, really super thankful, because the Cheviot spin will now always be my COVID spin, and the Stonecrop will always be like my COVID knit, So anyhow, it's funny. So this, I'm knitting the smallest size because my gauge is ever so slightly bigger. So the sweater is actually a little bit bigger than the smallest size. The size 1, I think, is how she does her sizing. I divided the sleeves at the beginning of this, it was like row like 42 or 43. If I had kept on going, it would have ended up just way too big. And too much bulk, and that works in a sweatshirt like this that's a really, really light jersey. It doesn't work so well when it's like a double knit, when you're carrying 2 yarns and you've got double thickness, even though it's sport weight, fingering weight. It just doesn't quite work the same. So I divided the sleeves, and you cast on stitches for the underarm, which I did, and then I just continued on. So I actually finished the first chart here. This is the entire first chart from here to here. And I just started the second chart repeat with the bobbles down here. So the bobbles down here are the beginning of the second repeat of the chart. The chart is like 65 or 66 rows long. It's a huge chart. So that was the first chart repeat, and then I've just started into the second, like repeating it basically. So it ends up, the short rows at the back lift up the back, and it's here. It looks like it's too small for me when I hold it up like this, but honestly, when I put it on, it was actually a little bit too big. So it'll give me a little bit of ease, positive ease. And when you look at the modeled photos of her wearing it, it's not super, super tight. It's got some give to it. So the color work section is my Fractured Dawn spin. It's Targhee bamboo, silk or nylon. That's embarrassing that I can't remember. Don't remember. Silk. Targhee bamboo silk. This is the Fractured Dawn colorway, like we mentioned at the beginning. And this yarn spun up to 1,500 yards per pound. That was the grist. It was 372 yards, 107 grams. So I'll use up as much of this as I can, and I spun this on my e-spinner, my Ashford e-spinner. It was so smooth. I divided the braid up into 3 equal bundle batches. I spun 3 singles, and I spun it all to one bobbin with like a spacer in between. I used a fiber that was different in between each bobbin, quote unquote, and then I reeled them off onto weaving bobbins to then ply from the first spun end, and that's the yarn that I ended up with. One of my favorite yarns that I've ever spun. I really love this yarn. And then to go with it, I ended up using Katrina's. It's also Katrina's. I wanted to stick with the same dyer, same colorway to help this to work really well. This is her Tough and Tender in Deep Jungle, and it's this gorgeous sort of forest green color. It's just a gorgeous layering process that she uses to dye, and yeah, it just goes really, really, really well with the Fractured Dawn. The skeins of the Tough and Tender are 115 grams, and they're 440 yards or 400 meters. So they're really, really generous. And I have to skein up the second skein now because I need the second skein. So what I'm going to do actually is finish knitting this little bit that's left of the skein, and then I'm going to cut this and separate it from the body of the sweater, and I am going to knit the sleeves. So I'm going to knit the sleeves with the other skein of yarn, and then when they're done, I'll come back to the body and finish it off, because I'm either going to need a third skein of the Deep Jungle, or I can maximize the yardage and use it all up. So I don't want to run out of yarn at the bottom for the bottom ribbing. So I had thought if I only need like to do the ribbing, like if I run out sort of right at the bottom there, Katrina does these petites, these mini skeins, and so I won't have to get an entire big skein of the Deep Jungle. I can get one of her petites and just finish it off. And I don't know how much yardage the petites are. There's varying yardages depending on the like depending on the base, like if it's her DK, or if it's her tough and tender fingering, or if it's some of her other ones. I'm gonna look, because I know for some people that would be a really great option, is to use the petites. So, and they're very affordable, because if you get a petite, it's 1.25 ounces. So 136 yards or 124 meters. So like if I only had the ribbing to do that, I could totally just get one or two of her petites, and I'd have 100 or 200 yards versus like a full 440 yards. So it's a great option. 35 grams. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking about doing. Does anybody have any questions about the Stonecrop? The virtual spin group, they're just such an amazing group of people. Our virtual spin group meets weekly. It's part of the Patreon tier. Limited spaces available because we're on a Zoom meeting, and so there's 5 of us. And if you're kind of wanting like a taste of what the virtual spin group is like, you might want to think about joining the queries and explorations tier that I was talking about at the beginning of the podcast, because that would give you a really good idea of what the virtual spin groups are like. And if space opens up in the future, or if we add a second spin group, then you could hop on there and join if that was something that you wanted. We're doing a Stonecrop like make along together, our virtual spin group. So if you guys want to join in on that, I'll put a link in the Ravelry group, and we're going to be actually doing the cardigan version, because I'm probably crazy for wanting to make this again right away. I'm going to work on it through the summer once the pullover version is done, but I'm loving this pattern so much, and it is so much fun to make, that I said to them if they wanted, because they wanted to do that, I said that like I'd be totally game. So we're gonna work on our swatches and our steaks over the next week or two, and come together and do that. So I'm really excited about it. I'm probably gonna use my Pasuta that I spun. So I did Arctic Berries, and I also did my Pasuta, same base, on the e-spinner. And I'll use the Ocean colorway instead of the Fractured Dawn. So that's kind of my plan right now. But I'm going to look through my stash of handspun and see if there's maybe something else that I want to use as well. Because I have a skein of On the Round. I think it's On the Round in BFL silk, I think. And it's a really super finely spun 2-ply that I ended up with an inordinate amount of yardage. I made it years ago. And I have some undyed cream opal sock yarn in my stash. And I kind of thought if I chain plied, so if I put the BFL back through my wheel and tightened up the twist and then created a chain ply, that actually those two yarns together would make a beautiful Stonecrop cardigan. And it is steeked. So that'll be really fun. So we're going to do that. All right. Oh, good idea, Kelly. Yeah, for the Camaro sweater that you're working on. All right. Thank you so much, you guys, for being here. We've gone way over time. So it's a big show today. Thank you for being so patient and for listening to me wax poetic about all the things this week. I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate you being here. And I just want to thank you guys so much. Thank you. Until next time, have an amazing week. I will see you on Friday. I guess we've got the wool stream coming up this coming Friday. So I will see those of you who are part of that Patreon tier. I will see you on Friday morning for that. And virtual spin group, I'll see you guys on Thursday. And then everybody else will see you back here on Sunday, next Sunday morning, to stream another podcast show. I can't believe it'll be another week again. Thankfully, where we are here, things are very slowly starting to open back up, and I hope that that is the case where you are. And until next time, happy spinning, happy knitting, happy all the things, happy dreaming. I will talk to you next time. Bye, guys.